Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. My name is Tara Sands, and I'm joined by
Steve Yurko.
All right. Well, that was so McConaughey of me. Maybe because I was just watching him in True Detective, so I got an all right. He doesn't say that.
No, I feel like he does. He says that. Like he said that in
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused, and then he just says that.
Is that right? Did I just
Yeah.
say that? Now I just second guessed myself.
Like he says that in that movie, and then he just says it at award shows when he just shows up. You know.
Right, because he wants to make he knows, it's like when I say Bulbasaur, like he knows that the people want to hear it. Yeah, he just gives it to them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a McConaughey kind of day here at the offices of 4Kids Flashback.
That is true. Yes, I like to think that we actually have offices, and that's could not be farther from the truth.
We should start just making up a canon where it's just like, yeah, we got our offices, like in our cube, or our floating cube.
I'm in my cubicle.
Like it was one of the old
It's
Fox
an open
box
concept
cubes.
space. It's nothing of the sort. But hello, you guys. Thanks for coming back and listening to another episode. I will be honest. I'm a little nervous about this episode because I tend to do some research beforehand. And with Alyssa Tucker today, I'm sort of excited to be surprised because I don't completely understand what her job entailed at 4Kids, but I know she was there for 17 years. So I'm hopefully just going to let her do all the talking and teach us about what someone in her position does.
And this must mean she was pre-Pokémon, I guess.
Yes, she was pre-Pokémon before the company changed names. So she was there from 94 to 2012. So not in the offices I worked at. She was in the Uptown offices. But I'll let her tell you all of that. I am still reading the Monster Kids book, and I'm loving it. I'm learning a lot. Yeah. And in this, the author is a friend of yours, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Or someone you know?
Daniel Dockery, yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend this book. Hopefully we'll get Daniel on at some point to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But, you guys, I'm learning. I'm learning so much. Reading is fundamental. Reading is important. Do you remember those commercials, Reading is Fundamental?
No.
Riff?
It just made me think of the posters in school libraries.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very inspirational episode today. You guys, there's some stuff you can do if you want to be part of the show. If you guys want to leave us a voicemail and hear your voice heard, we have something called SpeakPipe. If you go to speakpipe.com/4kidsflashback, number 4, you can leave us a voicemail. You can tell us, like, your favorite memories or least favorite memories of 4Kids, just touching stories. People have just told us so much cool stuff about what they liked and disliked, and I don't want to give too much away, but let us know what's on your brain if it's 4Kids related. I guess also if it's not, but that's less likely to be played. Yeah. What else can they do, Steve?
You like our show so much, go over to our Patreon at patreon.com/4kidsflashback. Spell it with the number 4, please. I beg of you. But if you go over there, you can listen to our podcast a week early and ad-free. Check out a bunch of other bonus goodies on there, like some videos we post, some old scripts, some other old things we find there. Just want to make it like a neat little, like, hey, check this.
New things, not just old things, new things too.
And and exclusive watch parties we've been doing with some old,
fun stuff,
old Ultraman Tiga episodes, some lost, now found.
Yeah,
that's what we got going on over there.
We got a lot of stuff going on. You can buy merch. Just go to our website, follow the buy stuff link. I think it says shop. And show your love for the podcast or for 4Kids, or get a Yayo shirt.
Yeah.
We have weird stuff.
Get a Yayo phone case. I don't know what it's on, but start with the shirt.
Yayo Alyssa Tucker will be here in a second. We'll be right back. Our guest today is Alyssa Tucker. Alyssa was the Senior VP of Licensing and Marketing at 4Kids Entertainment. The fun thing is I don't know what that job entails. Steve and I are in the dark about this. Alyssa spent 17 years at the company. I think you're our first interview from this department and our longest running staff member interview. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, so humor us a little because we have spoken to the people who were actors, directors, writers, producers, things like that, artists. We have not spoken to someone from your department. Can you just pretend we're 5-year-olds and tell us what it entails?
Maybe all day doing that. We were a small department when I first started, actually. So I'm not surprised. And I was probably the last man standing before the company sort of went, I don't want to say out of business, but, got defunct due to certain things.
It wasn't called 4Kids when you started.
No, it was called LCI, actually, Leisure Concepts Incorporated, when I started. And we represented Nintendo, Super Soaker, James Bond. And basically, I was brought in because we were just signing WCW, Turner's new wrestling property.
Was that the one that was eventually made into a show, but there was no production going on when you started? We should make that clear. This was a licensing company, right?
It was a licensing company. Al did work with Norman, I think, on certain projects, but Norman wasn't part of the company. I think he had his own company, and they did a lot of stuff together. So I wasn't 100% really involved in that, but WCW was part of Turner, and it was wrestling. It was a new wrestling back, when it first started, NWO, WCW. So that was really one of the biggest licenses when I first joined the company. And at that time, Pocket Monsters, it wasn't even called Pokemon, just so you know.
Yep.
So it was called Pocket Monsters, and I'll never forget. It was myself, Susan Eisner, who was my boss at the time, worked under Al, and Faith Wall. She was also a licensing person like myself. And then we had a creative director, and in the meeting, and he said, he showed us a poster, and he said, okay, this is the next property we're going to be working on. And we were like, what? What is this? Pocket Monsters? And that was sort of the start of, 4Kids really coming to life, eventually changing the name and having Norman's whole team and 4Kids Productions and, going into many different divisions. But I couldn't even license out Pokemon in the beginning. I literally was like, if you want WCW, you have to take Pokemon. And people are like, I'm like, come on. No joke. No one had any interest at all.
Okay, wait. Okay, I want to just go back a little again for the people like me who don't, or just people at home who are just listening because they love anime, but might not even know what licensing is. Can you, and what a person does to prepare for a career in licensing in case that's something people listening are interested in?
It's very interesting you say that. I don't think there was anything at the time when I was in school or knew anybody in licensing. So it was, sort of new. To myself, coming from more of the manufacturing side of my career and buying. So we were an agency. So LCI was a licensing agency. We represented different brands and properties. And we were sort of like the middleman, working with manufacturers, licensing out the properties and the brands that we had, negotiating all the deals for them to take on the IP, manufacture the goods with the IP for different licensors.
So like Cabbage Patch Kids. So
correct.
Let's say you have the license for Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yep, we did.
Do you come up with I know, I love that. Did you come up with the ideas, or did Cabbage Patch Kids say to you, we want a lunchbox, and then you go find a lunchbox? Or was it you guys saying, hey, Cabbage Patch Kids, you need a lunchbox?
Right. Well, I think it's okay. Working as an agency side, we worked with the clients to identify the client's goals, right? Then we develop a comprehensive licensing strategy. So we build that with different product lines, that is obviously, we sort of had this list that probably, I don't even know if it still exists anymore, but it was the licensing list of, soft goods, hard goods, and under apparel, all the different, articles and home. So we would go through and develop this comprehensive licensing strategy for each brand. And, we identify and assess, different potential partnerships based on market, the retail segments, who we work with. We select partners that align with the licensing strategy. Then our job was to work with these manufacturers, and then we would work on all the licensing agreements. So we would solicit, negotiate, we do all the contract execution. And then we develop also at the same time marketing, launch, rollout plans that align with the plan and strategic vision of each property.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot.
So does that help a little bit? I'm
Yeah.
trying not to make it too difficult.
No, I love that. I mean, and I guess this is my own, because I love the idea of going to factories and seeing stuff get made. Did you get to do that?
So we didn't go to tons of factories, but we went to a lot of different showrooms,
right.
meeting, incredible people that I still somewhat work with today, and learning about all aspects of each division. It could be from toys to apparel to food. I remember doing the Pokémon deal for, Kellogg's and, just so many vitamins. We did a vitamin deal, so it's like learning, and you would go and we'd see some factories, like the vitamin factory being, Kellogg's, corporate office in Battle Creek, Michigan, and them, talking about their plans, showing, what's going to be coming down the next year or two. And just, it's very interesting, right? Like going, you think you go and you buy, a Spider-Man t-shirt and you think probably, Disney makes it, right? Most people don't realize that it is licensed. Mm-hmm. And there are these companies that you never heard of, that they're multi, $100 million companies, $1 billion companies behind it, making all the products, So that,
I mean, it's the smartest thing too, because people say the money's in the licensing of these things. I watch so much risk. Shark Tank.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, Kevin O'Leary loves to do licensing, so I've been doing it a lot longer, Kevin. No, just kidding.
That's right. Kevin's a big fan of the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. He loves anime. Okay, so you're working at LCI, and at some point they start doing television production. I think the WAC Masters, I'm probably saying it wrong. Yeah, they did that. I wasn't involved in that. We didn't really do that much licensing. Oh, God, the W Masters. Yeah, I know Norman and his team were really involved in that. Pokemon really was their biggest. So when you see this, were you like, what the hell is this show? Because I know I was the first time.
A little bit, I think. I think it was just such a world. When we came off at WCW was, we were working with Nintendo, which is a great property, and, putting together all the strap plans. At that time, Nintendo wasn't heavy in licensing the way it is today. We were really careful. We worked on so many properties. Oh my God. I mean, Turtles, you name Cabbage Patch Kids. I could go on and on. We also, worked on so many different animes that now are even so big. Back then, it's like, One Piece. Nobody wanted to license One Piece. I'm like, okay, so
yeah,
it's just it's right timing. Licensing is all about timing, really.
Well, okay, since you mentioned One Piece, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Sorry.
But Steve is a One Piece encyclopedia, and when we spoke to Norman, what he said was that even though One Piece was not a show for children, they wanted 4Kids to make it because they wanted to sell toys.
Correct.
Now, I don't have a memory. Steve, maybe tell me if I'm totally wrong. Do you have a memory of a lot of merch that was sold for One Piece?
Yeah, I remember there being a toy line through Mattel.
Yeah, Mattel did it.
Okay.
There was card games as well.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you brought up One Piece, I'm curious if that was like a hard sell to Mattel or just.
Well, I think that was coming up like around. Yu-Gi-Oh. So Yu-Gi-Oh was with Mattel, so it wasn't such a hard sell at that point. It was like, all right, take it and they'll do it. But, I think they probably, in hindsight, if you really think about it, wasn't the right partner because it was too young. But there weren't like the Funkos, right? Around. There weren't a lot of like those specialty toy companies as today that really focus on collectors. So you really had the big guys, right? You had Hasbro and you had Mattel and there were some other guys, but they were always, I used to go to Toy Fair when the Toy Fair buildings were up in New York, and I would spend, days and days, and there was so many different companies, and, and now Toy Fair has shrunk it, the big guys eating, the small ones are companies out of business. But, as I said, like in hindsight, it probably wasn't the right partner, and they were probably focusing a little bit too much, on the younger kids at that point. And anime was still not as big, right? But we had such success with Pokemon and then Yu-Gi-Oh! So everyone's like, all right, I'll take it. I'll touch it, the Pokemon stories, I say, as I was saying, there was such a small group of us when it really started. I mean, at that time also emails weren't emails, right? People weren't doing, it was a lot of phone calls. And I remember like one night, like lying on the floor of my office, like just pressing the buttons. Okay, this message, that message, hundreds and hundreds, and I never forget, someone wrote me a letter. I'm sorry. When you got in trouble when you were younger and you used to write, I'm sorry, like 20,000 times. I should have listened to you, And then there were some companies, that going back to WCW, there's one company, a really great guy. And I was like, oh, you got to try Pokemon. Listen, you'll do WCW, I'm telling you. And he always says to this day, like, I mean, it made him. It made his company, bought his homes. Like, it was so crazy. A lot of people just, didn't believe in certain things back then. So I think it changed a lot.
I like to think that those people sent you flowers at some point to be like, you were right.
Yes.
Were there any just like really weird, once in a while, like I'll see stuff from like licensed, like I'm like, well, how did that work? Like, why is there a broom for that show? Or like, was there any crazy collaboration that...
Oh my God. Oh, I really, you know what?
Like there's a Pokemon waffle maker that I bought. And I was like, how did that happen?
Oh my God. Even Winx. We did Winx. Oh my God. I just thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, now it's like they're doing, so much now. I have to tell you, we did hundreds. I can't even count how many licensing deals that, especially for Pokemon, that we did. I mean, bath toys.
Insane.
I mean, I remember bath toys and then they were selling them as toys. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. I don't think anything weird that really stood out. I think there was just so many.
It was just the quantity of it.
Yeah. From like, even we worked with this company, A&A Global, they did, the vending machines. Right? So it's like from vending machines to Kellogg's and to, QSRs, quick service restaurants. So, with McDonald's, I mean, we did bags and shoes and watches, plush. I'm telling you, it was hundreds of deals. It was just...
Waldo Cabrero
Wally.
Waldo told us that his family just kept getting jobs there because they just needed more people to approve purchase orders. Is that sort of how that works?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I'm telling you, it was very few people. In Susan's department, in the creative department, not Alyssa, Susan Simpson, Wally worked for Susan. And it just like every day there was like more people. We started, really small floor. I'm telling you, we did more deals with less people. And then as the company, grew. Oh, and there was a lady, Carlin West. She did marketing. There was one marketing person.
Only one. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was one. And then we all, whatever we, could do. From calendars, candy. I mean, bedding. Bakery. We did bakery stuff, like, having
for
cake.
Pokemon.
Yeah, sporting goods. Oh my God, I could just go on and on.
Were there shows that just merch didn't work for? Like I was on Fighting Foodons and I don't remember seeing any merch. Were there
Fighting Foodons?
Reasons
oh my God, I remember. No, yeah,
it was so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird, but no, it doesn't. Licensing, not everything translates. It really doesn't. Right. And if it translates, sometimes it just doesn't translate to that chart. I would say, here's your hard goods, here's your soft goods, and you go down the list, and it's like a lot of that stuff just doesn't translate because the true fan, right, really wants certain things. And I think, that's why the success of like, the collectors and the Funko and Comic-Con became so big. When I went to Comic-Con for the first time, it was nothing like it is, today.
Totally different.
Yeah. It's become
now it's corporate. It's a corporate entity now.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yes.
Every week since 2009, the One Piece podcast has discussed and analyzed the latest installments of the hit anime and manga series, One Piece. Now you can see the podcast crew live and in person in New York City. It's a chance to see your favorite podcast up close and potentially win some free swag. Check out the One Piece podcast at City Winery in New York City on Sunday, August 25th at 7 p.m. Just go to onepiecepodcast.com to get your tickets today. Again, that's Sunday, August 25th at 7 p.m. at City Winery in New York City. This is such a weird question, but I have to ask because I'm curious now. So I always gauge the popularity of things by whether or not they're in the 99-cent store yet.
Oh my God.
Is that something that people in your industry look at as like a metric of how well something's, or do you already know it's done by the time something gets shipped over there?
No, I think retail's changed, right? Brick and mortar it's difficult. Like it's not what it was. There was so many different retailers and that's why there were more manufacturers at the time, right? That we sold to, right? Tons of different toy companies, and they had it was a destination shop for this and that. And I think as time went on, and also, financially, people wanted, better pricing. And that's why these sort of Ross and I don't want to say, Five Below, those type of stores have such success. I don't think a property's dead because it's in there. People don't have, $25 to $100 to spend on something, but their kid really loves it or they love something and they can afford it. So I don't think, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I actually like that answer so much more than how I looked at it because it means that there is a price point available for every consumer, which is such a nicer way of looking at it than the way I was looking at it.
Yeah.
So the products come in, right? So let's say you make a deal with a toothbrush company.
I did.
I'm sure there must have been great Pokémon toothbrushes.
Yeah.
So, okay, do they send you the product to approve and look at, what's the chain of events?
Yeah. So they have to submit everything. There are forms. So back then, everything was paper. Wasn't like digital originally. Yeah. So they would have to send in the design with the form, fill out the form, this is what it is. And we would send it back, make these changes. And then it would go for like Nintendo or Pokemon, depending what we're working on, or I was saying like James Bond or Turtles, it would go to the licensor. They would have to approve it. If they had any changes, then it went back to the manufacturer. Then they made the changes, sent it back. And then once the art's approved, then it goes to pre-production. Then they have to send pre-production samples. Then you take a look at it, goes to the licensor, back to you. That's the thing about being an agent. So it's a process, 100%. It's a big, big process that goes back and forth. And then it gets approved to final, and then you get final samples. We had like a crazy sample closet. It was super fun.
Yeah, and we never got to see any. Like I worked at the downtown office. Right. I never got a plushie, a tooth. Like they made it sound like anything. This. I bought all of it myself, and I was like, I can't believe that. Now I'm finding out there was an uptown office just hoarding this stuff.
Oh yeah, we hoarded.
And
but
I'm mad.
I moved downtown. I was on 23rd later on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we ended up moving downtown on 23rd, licensing and marketing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was where the end was. Yeah.
Well, I know. Okay, because I know that then the art department was down there, but I didn't know you guys were too.
Yeah, we ended up moving down there.
So this is the question I have because, again, you mentioned Funko Pops.
Yep.
Now, Funko has made... I played Bulbasaur, so they've made they've made a ton of Bulbasaur Funkos, which has been great, but they've never made the human characters. So does a company license certain characters and certain specific designs? Like, how does that work? So
it depends, right? So with Pokemon history, we always found outside of Ash with Pikachu never really sold. So it was So that's probably why they didn't do the human characters. Nobody cared about them, right? Ash out of anyone, yes, if he had the Pokeball or Pikachu on his shoulder, right? That was interesting. Otherwise, human characters really did not sell well. And that was one of the things that we tried. We did like a lot of group shots on different merchandise, and sometimes that would sell. If you put like Charizard and Pikachu and you write Bulbasaur, whatever, with some of Ash and the other characters from it, but it didn't really.
Would you
sell
focus
well.
group that kind of stuff, or you just had to use the market as your focus group?
I think at that time, we used the market. Yeah, that was definitely, Even like with Yu-Gi-Oh.
That's scary.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh also somewhat, had that, issue. Well, think about Turtles, right? Turtles was part of 4Kids also when we brought it back. No one really cared about Splinter really that much. He sold maybe one out of, every 1,000, of a toy, right? And not many people really bought a Splinter shirt. They wanted to be a turtle, especially that kids. They just wanted to be like, I want to be Donatello or Raphael,
Right. And now I think we think differently because we know that there are also adults in the toy buying market, whereas that wasn't as much of a thought back then. I'm guessing. You tell me. Like the kids were the target.
Yeah, the kids were the target. And it's different. Like today, like why the success of like Paw Patrol is because if you think about it, a toy company created it. They knew what to put in there, right? So, and then created the show. It makes sense, right? They're going after a certain demo. We're going to create a show that has vehicles, has characters, everything that kids like. You create that, and they're going to want everything. When you just create a show and then pick little things out, it makes it a little bit more difficult. You're not going to get the revenue,
Yeah, Mike Pecorello, we did an interview with him, and he taught us the word toyetic.
Yep.
And that when creators are pitching a show, it's how many toys can we, and it's so I don't want to say it's sad because again, I get it, it's part of a machine and everyone needs to make money, but was 4Kids on the front lines of being a company that did both production and licensing? Was that very unusual at that time?
Yeah, as an agent, yes, they were.
Okay.
Yep, they were.
So revolutionary.
Sure.
Yeah. Did the toy sales dictate if a show stayed on the air?
No.
No, okay. So that was a separate...
Really, I think so, yeah. It actually went the other way, at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we had like properties like Tom and Friend that you probably never even heard of, like that.
I was on Tom and Friends.
There you go. That didn't do well.
No, but that was such a weird one because it was on at like a crazy time. Now, so Brenda had won a clock from Tom and Friends.
Oh my God, Brenda,
Like, so did stuff get made for Tom and Friends and
we
then
had a
just
couple
like sat on a shelf?
And it didn't do well at all. Yeah. I don't even know what happened because that's like a really good one. Yeah.
It's so funny. And I mean, I am not a good predictor of what is going to be successful and what is not. But
I think that's a very hard thing to predict, to be honest with you. Think about it. Look, when we were doing Nintendo, before Nintendo, everything, like we did well, but we didn't have as much. I did a whole line of Nintendo action figures and it didn't even do well. I was like, how is this not? Right now? It's like people can't get enough of them.
Right, and then now there's the collectors who want it. Like, we did a charity auction. Someone who worked at 4Kids came across a Yu-Gi-Oh toy from Yu-Gi-Oh GX, and she was like, "Here, take it." And I was like, "No, I think this is actually valuable." And I looked online. It was so rare that I could not even find comps for it.
That's crazy.
And we just raised some money for charity selling it on eBay, which is fun. But like, I think about the stuff that's probably in a landmine somewhere.
Right.
All this incredible stuff that was in your closet at 4Kids that
I don't know. I had
gone.
So much stuff. I remember always coming home with cards. I would give them to my nephews, friends. I was stupid. I look back, I'm like, wow, I should have saved them. I know so many people. I have like some posters. Topps did, we did basic trading cards. I have like the original first cut and some signed stuff and things like that. But
okay, good. You have stuff.
Yeah,
you have some stuff.
So you talk about like certain things. Like Cabbage Patch did great, like in the dolls and like certain things. But apparel was never big for Cabbage Patch. A lot of the ancillary categories, and articles didn't really do well with Cabbage. It just didn't translate because you know what? Here's the thing. You have, Susie the doll. I don't want a shirt of Martha, right? You know what I mean? And they're
Right.
all different. So how can you make all different t-shirts? It never really, except the original logo, worked for Cabbage, and still sort of goes today. It's really the same, outside of the dolls. There wasn't that much success from the merchandising standpoint, and then you had like Turtles that, from toys to apparel to costumes, to everything did really, really well.
So when you team up with, I love talking about the food stuff that you teamed up with. Now, does Kellogg's approach you? Do you approach Kellogg's? Like, how does this happen?
I think it's both, to be honest with you. I think when Pokemon was on fire, we had everyone, coming out of the woodworks, right? But then when we wanted to do like, a turtle cereal, then sometimes we would reach out to General Mills or Kellogg's or Nestle. So, and I also think, if you're going back when I first started, again, there weren't as many companies, and the big P&G companies were doing very little licensing. It's become, right? You go down the cereal aisle or you go down the snack aisle, everything's licensed, right? But it wasn't like that, at all.
But would it be like a bidding war? Like, would you say, hey, we're talking to this cereal company and this one? So they would bid. Okay.
Well, they would put in proposals. So we don't say bids. So we would say proposals. Like, for example, you have like the three top companies. They put in their final proposals. We would ask them to do pitches depending on what the property was. So we would say to the top three, let's say cereal companies or two, okay, put your final pitches. They would come in. They would pitch, they would talk about their marketing strategy. They would talk about the visual, right? Because that's really important. So visual, what the box would look like, what the cereal would look like. We're going to do little, characters, different things like that. And then they would go into the financials. And then we would, discuss internally what would be the best to make our recommendations to the licensors. Again, we were an agency. So, everything had to go back to the licensors. The only thing that 4Kids owned at that, later on was when they started working on Chaotic. So we were the licensor in Chaotic at that point.
Okay, so this is another insane question. And again, it's about me, but I think it will answer a bigger question for people. So I was a marshmallow shape in the Pokemon cereal. I was Oddish, but Oddish was not like the most popular character. Now, is that because not every character made a good marshmallow shape? Like, was there testing? Like, did you get to test the marshmallow shapes?
Because they have to come up with the molds, right?
Right.
Right. So certain things are just, you can't do, and they won't look right. So, yeah.
Well, I was excited, and I saved that cereal. And my parents threw it out, and they were like, it was expired. And I was like, oh, no.
You saved the box.
Oh, my God. So was there other weird, I just like hearing the weird stuff, like the marshmallow shapes, like who would have thought about that? But I know this is a long time ago, so if anything occurs to you.
I really have to think hard on that one. I should have really went through my old notes.
No, it's okay.
No, I guess I was there for so long, just so many, you say odd, just so many things happen. So, hard, and then when I left, they actually hired me back to handle American Kennel Club for them because they still had it. But
they still had the license.
They still were repping. Yeah, they still had that. They were still in business, so they hired me back to consult for American Kennel Club for 2 years.
Okay, so then you're a great person to go over the timeline with, actually. Then so. Because there were all these offshoots that some made it, some didn't. So first it's LCI, Leisure Concepts Inc.
Yep, that's who hired me. I was with LCI.
Okay, so Alcon hires you.
Alcon hires you. He bought LCI from Stan Weston, he was one of the creators of G.I. Joe.
Right.
And there was another, I think Stan was the only one, and Mike something. I don't know if he owned it, but Stan was, I guess the chairman of LCI. And then Al came in after his success from Cabbage Patch Kids Clico and bought out, I guess, Stan, and it would continue to be LCI. During the time of Pokemon, as our stock, we were on NASDAQ. Everything was, growing. And then I would say we rebranded as 4Kids around, So
Probably 98, 99?
Yeah, probably. I still have all my stock exchange stuff. I don't know if that's exciting. We went over.
I had that somewhere too. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then there was 4Kids Media and 4Kids Entertainment and 4Kids License. Like that's where I get confused.
So it was 4Kids Entertainment and for Licensing Corporation. They rebranded it like later on. I don't really know. It was all under 4Kids. It was all 4Kids Entertainment, and then they did 4Kids Media and then 4Kids Licensing to separate. And then they had 4Kids Technology as well. I know that was something else. And then there was Summit Media Group.
Right.
4Kids, and then that moved over to 4Kids Ad Sales. So Summit Media Group was run by a gentleman, and then I guess Al bought into it, and Shelley was running it and worked for Al. I'm not sure, but he owned a piece of it, and then it all came under the 4Kids Entertainment umbrella. So it was 4Kids,
okay.
yeah, and then they had 4Kids International. We had an office in UK originally, so it started to grow there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so that's my other question. Were you also handling foreign stuff? Like, were you doing so you were doing like the T-shirt was also in Spanish if it had writing on it?
We had worldwide rights. Yep. We had an office in the UK, and then we had agents like in Latin America. I ran the Canadian, we had an agent, and then I started running the Canadian agency and the business there as well. So then I hired a couple different Canadian agents, and then we had Australia agents. So we had agents worldwide. And it was 95, now that I remember, that we changed over to 4Kids Entertainment. So that's what we did. And then we were we changed the stock exchange to the New York. Yes, right? Yeah, exactly. I think that's
I mean, you watched that company explode. You really were there to see.
Well, I think the whole thing with Lehman Brothers really killed us, to be honest with you. We lost $100 million.
Yeah,
we lost $100 million overnight. We were warned. I remember there was a lot of, I don't know if you could say this on this chat, but I could tell you from the rumblings, like, what was happening, that we were warned. Our CFO at that time was interviewed, and they weren't worried. He made a comment like, I'm not worried about Lehman Brothers. And well, we lost $100 million, I think, overnight.
Well, we should probably explain this for people who don't know. So this was around 2008. Am I correct? This was like the recession. And can you explain what Lehman Brothers' relationship to 4Kids was?
I think, and I can't really speak 100, but our money was with it.
Right.
Yeah, our money was with them. We had a big,
Lehman Brothers, for those who don't know, Lehman Brothers is a banking institution.
And no more.
Yes. So they had their money there, and then suddenly overnight, 4Kids...
Right. So the bank went out. Well, because the government they didn't rescue, right? They didn't save them or help them.
They chose who to rescue, who not to rescue.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there were rumblings for a long time. I remember in the Wall Street Journal, there was tons of stuff about Lehman Brothers and, the fall of certain banks going at that time. And unfortunately, we got caught. And then the other demise, I think, of the company was when we got sued by, obviously, Konami wanting out of their deal.
Right. Well, first it was losing like around 2004, 2005, the Pokémon license ends. And they knew it was going to end, but I don't think they realized that everything was going to go with it. Like, I think Norman said that he thought, we'll still keep production of the show because we have, this machine in place for it. So so there were like some major blows. It was losing Pokémon, 2008 Lehman Brothers, Yu-Gi-Oh lawsuit, because Yu-Gi-Oh I don't know if you probably know so much more than I do, but Yu-Gi-Oh wanted to do what Pokemon did. They're like, we'll take our license back too and do this ourselves, right? Is that sort of what?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of internal stuff too that they weren't super happy with. Okay. No names mentioned, but
we don't need to.
There was a lot of listen, there's always going to be hearsay, but and they wanted that.
It's business. There's businesses never that clean. It's never.
And they wanted it, but our deal was going longer, so I think that was it. But lawyers and back and forth, and that sort of wiped. And they put a lot of money also into Chaotic, which
that was my next question.
Well, that was, in my opinion, a disaster. I mean, from day one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about that too, because again, that's something we haven't touched on here.
Two gentlemen on the West Coast, I guess had this, I don't know who created the idea, whatever. We went in, I guess I could have been 50-50 partners. I'm not exactly sure, but we spent They spent so much money. And my opinion, I think they got taken for a ride in a lot of things and just mishandling, I think, internally who was managing it, and it just didn't work. Maybe people had enough at that time, maybe, of trading card stuff, right?
Right. It felt like more of the same. But then I've also heard that there was a lot of indecision happening, which slowed things down.
100%. Okay. And the technology didn't work, right? I think that was the biggest
That's
thing.
a big deal. Yeah.
The technology, what they were trying to do, just never sort of panned out with all the unique codes and stuff like that. I don't think they were there yet. And I think that was one of the biggest, downfalls, unfortunately.
Without getting into too much detail, like you guys at home definitely can do a deep dive into this, but they were thinking so big, which again is awesome and great. And when you come from a company that did all this expansion, you're like, let's think big. But it seemed too ambitious, and it all sounded really cool. What I read about it, like it sounded awesome if it worked, but they weren't there. Oh, it is heartbreaking. So you were there to see. What was the feeling in the office like around those times where?
Listen, I think, you had a lot of people, as, we were told one thing, right? And as time went on, more people were being let go in divisions. And then the board, made decisions, and Al left. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And then you had a couple of people sort of managing and running the company. Yeah. So really, I just think it was just like a slow, the ladder falling, as time went on.
I want to get back to some of the toy stuff and merch stuff before we let you go.
Yes.
And Steve, please, if you have, I know you probably do have more One Piece specific questions.
Oh God, I wonder if I can answer those, but go ahead.
But my question for you is, were collectors on your radar at all during this time?
No. Or
was there like a year when that started? That was just never a thing. Okay.
Not really. Like I said, I remember doing the Nintendo stuff, and I was, we talked about that, more higher price point, but there wasn't that bigger collectors market the way, there is today. I think Turtles for a little bit.
I was just going to ask
Turtles. I definitely think, because it was an older property, right? Had history. So you knew the people aging up who were buying it, playing it, were now having kids. So I think there definitely was more, we would say, nostalgia than collectors and parents buying it. So that was like a big focus of ours. But I don't think the whole collectors thing was as big as it has been in the last, over 10 years. Right. Yeah. Like we did monster trucks also. I don't, we did tons. Oh my God, super motocross. Oh my God, now they're all running through my we have like a long list of so many different things. But the reason I bring that up is because we talked about like Hot Wheels, right? Because people did collect Hot Wheels at that time. So to me, when I say collectors, I was like, oh, the Hot Wheels cars. So that was one of the things that I can remember being like a collector's conversation more than, a lot of the anime. Because again, anime wasn't, as big.
Right. Were you involved also with the promo department? In like, if there was a promo between the soup, the can of soup with Pokemon in it, and
and like Norman's
collaborate?
Department. Yeah, there were some things our department did together. Yeah. So like certain things, like if it was gonna like a commercial or anything like that, there were a couple things. Not as much. I think when we were all like, on 58th Street, I think there was definitely more collaboration when Norman was there, and like everybody was a smaller. And then as we grew, just everything just got bigger and bigger. And there was like, look, I could have passed you in the hall, 1,000 times.
Right, exactly.
Right? I saw you interviewed Ziegler, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah. No, I spoke to him not even a couple months ago, a month or two ago. Small world. I met his niece here in California. It's just a small, but, we passed each other, 1,000 times, it's just.
I didn't know you were, so you're in Steve and I are in California as well. So many of us ended up here.
Yeah, yeah.
For your part of the industry, is it more necessary to be in California?
Years ago, it's funny. Again, there were so many more like these, companies, so many more of the agencies were more prevalent at that time, right? But then you hear in California, you always had like Warner Brothers, Disney, Universal, you had Sony, and then the East Coast, you had like Nickelodeon, so you had CBS, you had, certain things. So now I think, years later, I think there's a lot more here and that's one of the reasons a lot of manufacturers, especially companies, definitely have offices here, right? To be closer to the bigger licensors who are bringing in the big, big dollars, right? That's been a definite, shift, because I would say now more West Coast than it is East Coast, right? And even if you're East Coast, like, the Paramount, CBS, that whole Viacom conglomerate, they have an office here on the West Coast now. So I definitely think there was, a big shift for sure. East Coast, West Coast, but always East Coast had more of the agencies and West Coast had more of the studios. That's how we used to say it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then, a lot of companies, and the reason why a lot of different agencies didn't, last, or because a lot of the companies, once they start, like Nintendo, they take them in-house. They see, right? But Nintendo's business, just like, it's probably, less than 5%, we used to say, of their whole overall, right, business, you know what I mean? Or, licensing small, but it's a great marketing. Same for Coca-Cola. It's not, they don't look at it. Yes, they're happy to make money, but that's not their big thing. Like Netflix, when they started their licensing division, it wasn't about making a dime. They didn't care about that. It was all about marketing, right? And
it's promotion.
Right.
It's free promotion that someone else pays for.
Exactly. Yeah. It's reaching their consumers and getting it out there, because who's watching regular TV? You're not doing commercials, right? You know what I'm saying? Right. This is the way people are seeing things today, especially,
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. Because I'm in the airport all the time, and everyone has a graphic tee that is somehow licensed now. Like, it used to be, like, people had a plain T-shirt. Now, everything I see, and a lot of it is anime. I mean, Steve, and you're a consumer of this stuff.
Yeah, guilty. Also, good. You know what? I recommend wearing a graphic tee when you go to the airport. I think TSA, half the time they'll respond very positively.
There you go. I love that.
Your experience will be so much better.
That's very fun.
Who knew?
Yeah, I think also, like, maybe because I come from a generation, like, I was watching Pokemon as a kid, and maybe us, or maybe just the, maybe it started with kids, like 80s kids, but I feel like we're the generations that didn't let go of the things we liked in our childhood.
Oh,
we incorporate it into our adulthood.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
That's why I think now it's, I think for toys, it's changed. I think there's just as much toys, if not more, for adults
100%
than there are for kids.
Yeah.
Does that affect your work?
No.
And the way you license, or, I mean, but like, you're making things an adult, like if you sold, Target probably has a Cabbage Patch T-shirt for sale, right? In an adult size, I would guess.
Yeah. I would say more adults than kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, when you approach companies, or you because you still work in licensing, correct? We should talk about what you're doing now, actually.
I do. When I left, as I said, I was like the last licensing person there.
Oh my God.
I left, and then I started my own business, and then consulting for manufacturers, actually. And 4Kids at that time also hired me back. So I was working with the American Kennel Club, representing some different properties on my own. And now I just represent manufacturers. So now I'm going after the 4Kids in the world and getting properties for my clients. So I'm on the other side.
So, okay, when you say manufacturers, again, talk to us like we're five.
Licensors.
That means licensors. So that would be...
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
So can you say who a client is to give us an example?
Sure. Isaac Morris Limited. I worked with them, actually. They did the Pokemon and some other Nintendo, like swimwear and stuff.
So that's they make the stuff. These are the people that make it. Like,
manufacturers make everything. Yep.
I just wanted to like break it down into like the simplest thing. Yeah. So then you say to them, okay, you make swimsuits. Here's who would be great for you. We should definitely do a Pokemon thing. And then approaching them. So now is it like, again, I'm so fascinated by which characters they choose to license and which they don't. Like, there's a company called Hypeland that I know he was like, oh, I'm trying to get this character, but the company doesn't want me to. But, like, is that like a push and pull with them over, like, but we think we can sell this character?
It's funny you say that. I think typically if it's based off a show, right? When originally Pokemon came out, let's just use that, they had originally I think it was 100 and something, 18 characters. And then they focused on probably the top, let's say 5 to 10, right? In the beginning, constantly using those characters and then bringing in other characters during the battles, right? They would focus really on just those main characters. But then also the ancillary characters, as we like to call them, some of them did become very popular. And then you start making products based off that. Like do you remember we worked with Microsoft on Xbox licensing and Viva Pinata? Did you do anything with that?
Oh, no, I wasn't there for that. No.
So we did that at Viva Pinata, and it was a game that Microsoft was coming out with. And then there was tons of different pinatas, but then we narrowed it down and we looked at like colors. We looked at, different animals, like, oh, this one, the unicorn or whatever, the pinata looked like, if it would be more relatable to girls, boys. So that was a big, decision of how we developed the style guide.
Right. So has technology changed the way you do your job? Like, because again, you could do a focus group online with a kid and say, which one do you like better? Or has it stayed the same, whereas the market decides? I
think so. I mean, I think technology definitely has changed. I think also things have to be faster to market these days also. And you just don't. And if you think about it, like Pusheen, you guys are familiar with Pusheen?
Oh, no, I don't know this. Okay.
Ooh, you guys don't know. You have to look at So Pusheen.
Oh, look it up.
Hip,
okay.
Apparently.
So Pusheen started, like, she had like cute little,
Oh, that's what this thing is.
Yeah, right. Everybody, like, nobody even knew what it was. So I'd say now it's been like 8 years. I got the license from my client. We were the first ones. And, she had we found her on Facebook. Like, that's so, it's so different now. Now look at Pusheen. It's like everywhere and everybody wants it. So.
Well, and you're saying that about the speed of this all. Is that because we are an Amazon Prime generation that is like,
and people
so like if
will
a show comes out, they're like, where's the merch?
Right. But then you have Etsy and you have so many counterfeits. Yeah. And people we're instant gratification. Instant gratification, for sure.
That's so interesting. I mean, with anime, what we do now, because people don't want to wait for the dub to come out, we do simul dubs where we're a week behind the Japanese. So it's like this insatiable, there's every generation expects things faster and faster, which makes your job so impossible, I would guess.
Yeah. And all the clients want things done. They want the contract the next day, so it's a little bit.
But have the manufacturers become more efficient also?
Yeah, so is it I definitely think, well, print on demand has, definitely helped, right? But also it's hard to be that fast, when you're selling to Target or Walmart, getting the PR. Right. It's so there is a little lag, but I definitely think faster for sure.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been so interesting. This is a whole new side of the company that I didn't know anything about. Steve, Steve and I have said, like, we can't wait to get a licensing person on. So thank you so much. She was an interesting person and an interesting side of the business I knew nothing about.
And one of those people that was there from, I don't want to say the beginning, but like there for like almost the beginning and through like the rest of it, that, 4Kids' lifespan, I should say. So like she had like she'd seen it all. She'd seen like, like the rise of Pokemon and all that, and kind of just like 4Kids attempts to recreate that and just falling through eventually. And
well, because that was stuff that some of that I had read online, but I didn't want to take as gospel until I heard it from someone who was there. So now I feel like she verified and clarified a lot of the businessy stuff of the end of the company. Really interesting. And we were talking afterwards about how licensing is such an interesting area for people to get into, and how like there wasn't like a way to study licensing, but I think now there are so many more options, and maybe this will inspire someone to try a job in licensing.
It's so different now too. It's like where there's so many small businesses. Me as someone who was like a convention artist, that has changed so much now. Like,
in what way?
Like so many artists that do like artist alleys and conventions and stuff, they almost feel like small businesses. It used to be, you drew some prints and you made like, little pin back buttons and stuff like that. Now people are making like, like high quality merchandise. It's so different now.
It's different than the old days. Yeah. I mean, listen, and again, it was cool to talk to someone who's like gone to Comic-Con since it changed. And yeah, like I was asking that collector question because I've watched the collector industry as a Pez collector. I've watched it go from something that didn't focus on collectors to now like there was another like exclusive out today, and I was like, you're just preying on the collectors, and I'm not giving into
and
it.
All that. It's happened. It happened to Pokemon cards. It's happened to the used video game. Just like the whole like concept of the used video game industry, I should say. I don't know. It's and I blame my generation because we I don't know. I like
Thank you for taking the
we got to
hit for that.
psychoanalyze my generation because I think maybe we just like don't know how to face the hardships of life itself without kind of just coddling something that reminds us of Saturday mornings when we were 10.
I loved what you said about that, though, about the nostalgia. Because, listen, like, I keep thinking, like, I want to do just a whole podcast about nostalgia. Or I'd love to get an expert on here about why certain things hold this place in our hearts. And I think you're right with your generation. And I think I'm an older generation, but I still, when I go to Target, I almost buy those retro T-shirts every single time because it reminds me of a happier time, or at least a happy, like a band or something. And again, it was simpler probably because we were younger, and a lot of the same crap in the world was, was just a different,
everything's terrible now.
Stuff.
It's like, no, things were always terrible. We were just naive,
Yeah. Yeah, but nostalgia is so freaking powerful. I mean, I was, I'm always at these conventions, and literally the fact that I can say Bulbasaur and make people free. I can't. It's insane. It's insanity.
You never know what people are
powerful.
Gonna like. I don't know, because like just like I don't want to say idolize, but kind of just like things that like they're gonna hold in like high esteem, like it's like I don't know, like it's high art or something.
Well, it's the feels. It's not even that. It's the feels, and you can't put a price on the feels. You can't put and it's going to be different for everyone.
Those companies are trying to find a way, though.
They certainly are. But I love that this also fed into the toyetic conversation we had with Mike Pecorello, and I feel like I'm really enjoying doing this podcast with you because I do feel like there are certain things that come full circle when the different departments. When we talk to them and like we see like the connections or the connections from then to today, whereas then it wasn't being pitched with the toy line and today it is, and those changes to the industry. And maybe, I hope this is helpful for people again who are pitching, or for maybe there's other stuff in here that people can take away, and it's not just a podcast about 4Kids.
Right.
Like that's my hope. Yeah.
A hell of a statement. So, yeah, we'll see where the show goes from here.
Yeah, but thank you to Alyssa Tucker for being here. And again, you guys know all the places to go. Find us, 4Kids Flashback. We'll have links to all of that. And we will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends or four. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.